Layouts and website come down to one essential thing, and that is the way you are measuring the sizes. So to cast you back in time, we started off with static layouts. That was pixel widths, and that's what you would be used to as a designer by and large, because that's print design. You know what the output is going to be, so you design with pixels or points or picas in mind, and as a result all of your designs look the same. Now in the 1990s we had the luxury of doing that in web design because all monitors were effectively 800 pixels wide, and so if you were doing a design for a website, often you would make sure that your design itself was 640 pixels wide or 680 pixels wide, just to make sure you had a bit of a margin there, and you knew that if you designed with that width in mind, maybe if you had 640 wide, your columns might be 320 each. All websites would display it the same, and isn't that great? The problem came when in the year 2000 or so, monitors started getting larger. So here I have an example that I've quickly mocked up of a static layout, and you can see that we've got the header, we've got the footer, they're each one big column wide, and then you've got 3 columns for the content. And if I emulate having a larger resolution monitor on this page, you can see how it starts getting really small. Our margins are enormous, very hard to see the content, and it all looks a bit weird. So that's one of the problems there. Now, a problem then also arises if you're designing for one of these larger monitors, say 1024 pixels wide or 1200 pixels wide, and then you've got a smaller monitor. So let's resize this and we'll see what happens if you had a smaller monitor. And look, it chops off the content, and that's not what we're after either. So suddenly all the websites in the world broke, and designers had to scramble to find a solution, and that solution was the fluid layout. So here we have a very similar layout. Again, the header, the footer, and 3 columns. Now the difference with this is that the widths are in percentages. This design, the container area, is 80% of the width of my page. Now I'm going to emulate the different resolutions again by zooming out, and we can see that no matter how small I make it, it's still 80% of the width of the page. So isn't that great? We're now at 100%. If I shrink the page, it's all good. It just shrinks like this. There's a bit of a jump there because of a measurement issue I had with the coding, so I'll just shrink it to this size. So we think, oh yeah, that's fantastic. We have found the solution, which was all very well and good until, you know, if the columns get too small, so if I shrink it further, we can see these columns are very, very squishy. And you know, if the monitors get too large, you can't really read the text very well, and these columns actually look far too wide. So that was around 2006 when we started encountering those problems because of the advent of mobile devices. The Apple iPhone came out. The first screen was very low resolution, very small. I believe it was 480 pixels wide, maybe only 420 pixels wide. It was very, very small. So as you can imagine, all the websites in the world suddenly shrunk to these ludicrously small sizes. We had to find another solution, and that was adaptive and responsive design. We're going to deal more with those in week 7, so don't worry about it just now. All you need to know from adaptive and responsive design is that adaptive is based on static layouts a lot, and it will serve up a different design depending on what device loaded the website. Responsive, though, will be based on fluid. It will shrink and expand to a certain point, and then it will change the layout, and we're going to be talking about that in week 7 more. The next video, I'm going to talk about how we divide the design up into these columns. So how do you decide how you're going to create your grid for your web page? I'm going to talk about the 12 column grid.